Imagine waking up one morning with a foul taste in your mouth. And no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no running water. Just a stick, maybe some crushed bones, maybe ash from last night's fire. This was reality for most of human history. The next time you brush your teeth, think about this. Your ancestors may have scrubbed their gums with twigs soaked in urine, and they thought that was hygiene. But the story of how humans have fought off tooth decay is far more bizarre and surprisingly clever than you think. It's not just about tools or paste. It's about survival, about culture, about beauty, power, and even fear. And it begins not in a dentist's office, but in the deserts of ancient Egypt. Thousands of years ago, long before modern dentistry, the Egyptians were already obsessed with their teeth. They believed that the afterlife required a healthy body, and that included a clean mouth. Archaeologists have discovered ancient medical texts describing concoctions for oral care: crushed rock salt, dried iris flowers, mint, pepper, mixed into pastes, applied with fingers or chewed on with frayed sticks. It wasn't perfect. Their teeth were ground down by sand in their bread. Infection was common, but they were trying, and in some cases they were incredibly ahead of their time. One preserved body was found with what appeared to be linen-wrapped herbs stuffed in the cavities, an early attempt at a dental filling. Primitive, yes, but intentional, strategic. These weren't random superstitions. They were attempts to fight a problem no one could ignore. Meanwhile, across the world, in ancient China, the elite had their own version of oral care. Bamboo brushes with hog hair bristles, herbal rinses with ginseng, clove, and salt. Manuals written by scholars detailed routines for breath control, tongue scraping, and gum massage. Clean teeth weren't just about health. They were part of a spiritual balance. Yin and yang, harmony in the body. The belief was clear. If your breath is foul, your soul is unclean. And then there were the Romans. They were inventive. If you walked the streets of Rome in the 1st century, you might come across someone gargling with human urine. Why? Because urine contains ammonia, a natural bleaching agent. To them, it wasn't disgusting. It was cutting-edge science. The elite would pay good money for Portuguese urine, believing it was the most potent. Imagine the irony. The richest citizens, dressed in silk, holding golden cups, and rinsing their mouths with recycled waste. Beauty, it turns out, has always demanded sacrifice. But oral care wasn't just a matter of vanity or ritual. In many cultures, it was survival. In the Amazon rainforest, tribes chewed on fibrous roots that cleaned the teeth and freshened breath. In parts of Africa and the Middle East, the miswak stick, cut from the arak tree, became a sacred tool. Antibacterial, naturally aromatic, and still used today. Not because it was trendy, because it worked. And that's a pattern you'll see over and over again. Humans, across time, across continents, experimenting, adapting, testing the world around them. Chewing bark, rubbing charcoal, picking bones clean. Because tooth pain doesn't care if you live in a palace or a hut. An infection doesn't ask what year it is. In medieval Europe, things took a darker turn. Hygiene, in general, became suspect. The church warned against vanity and nudity. Public bathing declined. And with it, so did oral care. People began to believe that brushing too much might harm the gums, or that bad breath came from spiritual corruption. Remedies became more superstitious than scientific. Dried mouse brains, burned herbs, powdered gems, sometimes even mercury. The cure was often worse than the disease. And yet, some persisted. Apothecaries sold tooth powders made of crushed seashells and salt. Nobles carried silver toothpicks and scented cloths. And in royal courts, dental appearance became a status symbol. White teeth were a luxury, black teeth a nightmare. But what if I told you, some people made their teeth black on purpose? In 17th century Japan, noblewomen painted their teeth with iron and vinegar to make them pitch black. It was called ohaguro. It symbolized maturity, beauty, and loyalty, a cultural marker as deep as any tattoo. To them, white teeth were ghostly, improper. Only the wild or the unrefined left their teeth pale. It's a perfect example of how dental care isn't just about health. It's identity, it's value, it's power. Meanwhile, in the Islamic world, The miswak stick became not just a hygiene tool, but a religious one. The Prophet Muhammad praised its use, and it was embraced as a spiritual duty. Millions still use it daily. In a way, it's one of the oldest continuously practiced oral health traditions in the world. And yet, modern science confirms it works. Antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, naturally flossing. The ancestors knew something we forgot. But the path to the modern toothbrush was anything but smooth. In 1780, an Englishman named William Addis found himself thrown into jail. His crime? Causing a riot. His legacy? Creating the modern toothbrush. Sitting in a dark cell, surrounded by filth and despair, Addis noticed something. Other prisoners were using rags, ash, or simply their fingers to clean their mouths. But it wasn't working. Their breath reeked. Their gums bled. So he did something radical. He saved a bone from his meal, drilled tiny holes in one end, and bristled it with hairs from a jailer's broom. He tied them in with wire, and then he brushed. When he got out of prison, he refined the design and mass-produced it. By the time of his death, his toothbrush empire was supplying products across Europe. One man, one jail cell, one dirty broom, and a revolution in hygiene was born. But even as toothbrushes spread, toothpaste was still in the dark ages. Early mixtures included burnt bread, chalk, crushed oyster shells, and soap. Yes, actual soap. People believed it helped clean the mouth. And technically, it did. But the taste? Awful. That changed in the 19th century, when chemists began adding mint oils, sweeteners, and even baking soda. Suddenly, brushing became a ritual that felt good. But still, many couldn't afford it. In Victorian England, the poor used soot from chimneys. In rural America, children chewed on salt and baking soda mixed with lard. There was no standard, no rules, just desperation and experimentation. Then came war, World War I, then World War II. Millions of soldiers living in cramped, unsanitary conditions. Disease spreads easily, so the military made oral hygiene a priority. Soldiers were issued toothbrushes and tooth powder. And something strange happened. When the war ended and soldiers returned home, they brought their habits with them. Brushing became a daily routine, a national norm. It wasn't advertising. It was discipline. That's how America started brushing its teeth. But in other parts of the world, older methods held strong. In India, neem twigs were chewed into brushes. The bitter taste, believed to kill bacteria, also toughened the gums. In some Aboriginal cultures, aromatic roots were mashed into pastes that cleaned and perfumed the mouth. And in South America, burnt plantain peels were turned into powders for whitening teeth. Science would eventually catch up to tradition. In the 20th century, researchers began analyzing the antimicrobial properties of these natural methods. What they found was astonishing. Many of the ancient tools, like miswak, neem, charcoal, were not only effective, but in some cases superior to early modern products. Nature, once again, had beaten industry, but as modern marketing took hold, we began to forget. Glossy ads told us we needed bright blue gel. We needed a sparkle. Strips, chemicals, foaming agents, whitening beads. The truth? Much of it was unnecessary, but it sold. Because clean teeth weren't just about health anymore. They were about confidence, about charm, about sex appeal. And so the toothpaste wars began. Brands battled for shelf space. Scientists were hired not just to improve function, but to optimize flavor and appearance. Fluoride became a cornerstone. Toothpaste became a billion-dollar industry. And brushing became an image. But beneath the surface, an ancient truth remained. We brush not just to clean. We brush to connect with ourselves, with others. A clean mouth is a signal. Ikare. I'm safe. I'm whole. And yet, even now, millions live without proper dental care. Rural villages, overcrowded cities, war zones. In these places, the history of oral hygiene isn't history. It's daily life. Children chew sticks, rub ash, rinse with salt water. Not because it's trendy, because it's all they have. And sometimes it's enough, but not always. Infections that start in the gums can travel to the jaw, to the blood, even to the brain. In ancient times, a single abscess tooth could be a death sentence. Imagine the slow burn of pain behind your eye, the swelling, the fever, the pounding pressure, and no antibiotics. No surgery, just hope. Hope that the swelling goes down, that the spirits are kind, that the poultice works, or that the village healer knows a secret herb. And if not, people died. Some of the earliest known surgical tools were not for the heart or the lungs, but for the teeth. Archaeologists have found skulls with holes drilled into molars. Not crude holes, clean ones, purposeful, likely meant to relieve pressure or drain infection. Ancient dentists, long before the term existed, tried to stop the pain, trying to buy time. In medieval France, the barber was also the dentist. He cut hair, he cut beards, and he pulled teeth. Without anesthesia, without sterilization. The red and white barber pole? That's blood and bandages. A symbol of surgical history, of screams muffled by cloth, of teeth yanked out by pliers heated in fire. Dentistry wasn't a career. It was a gamble, for both sides, and yet people still lined up. Because tooth pain breaks the mind. It steals sleep. It wrecks appetite. Turns smiles into grimaces. People would try anything. In some cultures, they believed the tooth worm caused cavities. Tiny creatures burrowing inside the enamel. Treatments included blowing smoke into the mouth or chanting spells. Sometimes it worked, probably by accident. But the fear, it was real. By the 1800s, dentistry was finally becoming a recognized profession. Dental schools opened. Tools improved. Anesthesia was discovered. At last, pain could be dulled. Not cured, but softened. And with that relief came innovation. Rubber toothbrush handles. Nylon bristles. Toothpaste in tubes. What once was homemade paste in jars became a sleek, mass-produced tube you could squeeze with one hand. Convenience had arrived. And it changed everything. Marketing did the rest. Early ads didn't just sell freshness. They sold status. A clean mouth meant class. A bright smile meant power. Hollywood stars grinned from posters, all pearl-white perfection. The message was clear. If your teeth weren't spotless, something was wrong with you. And we believed it. So we scrubbed harder, brushed longer, bought more. Whitening kits, mouthwash, electric brushes, water flossers, breath strips. And behind the shelves of glittering products, an older truth quietly persisted. Most dental problems start in silence, long before the pain, long before the blood. And that's where the story turns. Because for all our advancements, for all our gleaming smiles, oral health today is still deeply unequal. In poor communities, cavities remain epidemic. In countries with limited access to fluoride, children lose teeth before they lose baby fat. And in wealthier nations, overtreatment becomes a new disease. Teeth bleached until they're brittle. Gums cut for cosmetic symmetry. Smiles so white they reflect light unnaturally. How did we get here? It's the collision of biology and beauty. The mouth is one of the most intimate parts of the body. It's where we speak, eat, kiss. It's the gateway to the self. And we've been taught to be ashamed if that gateway isn't perfect. But perfection is a myth. Even ancient skulls show wear. Crooked molars, missing incisors. Human mouths were never flawless. They were functional, durable, evolved for grinding roots and tearing meat. It was only when society demanded more polish, more charm, that the smile became a battlefield. And the war continues. Somewhere in a brightly lit room, a teenager stares into the mirror. Her teeth are slightly crooked. Nothing serious, but she frowns. She scrolls through perfect Instagram smiles. Celebrities, filters, ads promising instant whitening. In her hand, a kit that claims to reshape her smile in 7 days. No one told her that enamel doesn't grow back, that the damage done by obsession can't always be reversed. But she's not alone. Around the world, billions chase the perfect smile, not just for health, for validation, for confidence, for survival in a world where appearance is currency. And that makes oral care more than just hygiene. It makes it psychological, cultural, even political. In some parts of the world, a child who grows up without access to a toothbrush may also grow up with shame. At school, at work, on dates, they cover their mouths when they laugh. They avoid eye contact. They speak less. They smile less, because the world told them their teeth are wrong. But the truth is, their teeth tell a story of resilience, of adaptation, of the human body doing its best with what it has. And that brings us full circle, because the real history of how people clean their teeth isn't just about bristles and powders. It's about the question, how do we care for the parts of ourselves that the world sees first, but understands least? Because the mouth isn't just a hole with teeth. It's where love is spoken, where lies are whispered, where lullabies are born, where revolutions begin. And tooth by tooth, we've tried to protect it, with twigs and soot, with herbs and oil, with fire and bone and bleach. The story of tooth cleaning is the story of fear and hope, shame and pride, pain and healing. It's every moment a parent wiped a child's mouth clean, every elder who taught the next generation how to chew the right bark, every desperate prisoner who carved a brush from bone. It's not just history, it's human. Now picture this, a small village in 5000 BCE. The sun is rising. A boy kneels by the river, chewing the end of a stick until it frays. His grandmother taught him this. Chew, spit, rinse, repeat. It's part of the morning, like breathing, like praying. He doesn't know about bacteria or plaque, but he knows his teeth feel better when he does this. And that's enough. Now fast forward to a sleek bathroom in 2025. Motion-activated lights, ultrasonic toothbrushes, eye-powered orang scanner. And yet, the goal hasn't changed. We're still fighting the same invisible enemy, trying to hold back decay, trying to preserve what we've been given, tooth by tooth, day by day, and the methods keep evolving. There are toothpastes now with enzymes that mimic your own saliva, nanoparticles that remineralize microscopic cracks, probiotics designed specifically for the mouth. We've come a long way from crushed shells and burnt bones. But even now, the most advanced technology often returns to ancient roots. Charcoal toothpaste trending again, oil pulling with coconut oil, an Ayurvedic practice thousands of years old. Miswak sticks, still used across Africa and Asia, and now popping up in Western health stores labeled natural toothbrushes. It's ironic, isn't it? We build satellites and code algorithms, but when it comes to oral health, we're rediscovering what our ancestors already knew. Because sometimes progress means looking back, and then looking closer. Because the real enemy isn't always the bacteria. Sometimes it's the indifference, the belief that the mouth doesn't matter, that dental pain is something to push through, that losing teeth is just part of getting old. It's not. Tooth loss is not inevitable. It's preventable, but only if we care early, consistently, and with the right tools. And this raises another question. Why do we separate dental care from health care? In many countries, seeing a doctor is covered by national health systems. But the dentist? That's extra, optional, a luxury. And yet, gum disease has been linked to heart problems. Poor oral hygiene to premature birth. Infections in the mouth can trigger problems in the brain, lungs, liver. Your mouth is not separate from your body. It is the gateway to everything. Ignore it and you pay. Not just in teeth, in life. But how did we get here? How did we go from chewing sticks and charcoal powder to sleek electric toothbrushes and ultra-precise dental lasers? To understand that, we have to travel back, way back, before dentists, before toothbrushes, before people even knew what bacteria were. Let's begin in ancient Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. Here, people believed toothaches were caused by toothworms, tiny creatures that burrowed into the teeth and caused pain. It sounds bizarre today, but for centuries, this myth traveled across civilizations, from Sumer to China to Europe. And it led to equally strange treatments. One method, burning henbane seeds and inhaling the smoke through a funnel placed over the mouth. The hope was that the heat and fumes would drive the worms out. Did it work? Of course not. But it shows how desperate people were to soothe the pain. In ancient Egypt, dental care was surprisingly advanced for the time. They made rudimentary toothpaste from powdered ox hooves, burnt eggshells, and pumice. Some even had dental prosthetics, gold wires used to hold loose teeth in place. But pain relief? That was usually magical. Literally, they'd recite spells to banish the pain, calling on gods to heal the mouth. Over in India, the ancient text Sushruta Samhita mentions oral hygiene methods like chewing on twigs from specific trees, especially neem, known for its antibacterial properties. This wasn't just habit. It was ritual, a way to clean, protect, and even purify the soul. In China, texts from 2,700 years ago describe using herbal pastes and rinses. They even practiced forms of acupuncture to relieve tooth pain. And by 600 AD, the Chinese were already making toothbrushes with bamboo handles and boar hair bristles, centuries ahead of Europe. Meanwhile, in ancient Greece, philosophers like Hippocrates didn't buy into toothworms. They believed toothaches were caused by imbalance, too much black bile or cold in the body. Their solution: rinse with vinegar, apply crushed herbs, or have the offending tooth yanked out. No anesthesia, of course. And in Rome, things get strange. Wealthy Romans sometimes used urine to whiten their teeth. Why? Because of the ammonia in it. Effective? Maybe. Disgusting? Definitely. But in a world without toothpaste, people got creative. By now, you might be thinking, how did anyone survive this? And the answer is they didn't. At least not with their teeth. Across these early civilizations, tooth loss was common. Infections often turned fatal. A rotting tooth wasn't just unpleasant, it was dangerous. But this was only the beginning, because next came the Middle Ages, where things somehow got worse. In the Middle Ages, dentistry took a dark turn. With the fall of the Roman Empire, much of the ancient medical knowledge was lost in Europe. Universities didn't teach dental care. There were no professional dentists. So who handled your teeth? Barbers. Yes, barbers. The same people who cut hair also pulled teeth. They were called barber surgeons, and their tools were terrifying. Iron tongs, hooks, forceps that looked like torture devices.
Same people who cut hair
there was
also
no
pulled
anesthesia,
teeth.
no
They were called
antiseptic.
barber surgeons, and
if
their
your tooth
tools were
hurt,
terrifying.
you simply bit down on
Iron tongs, hooks, forceps that looked like torture devices. There was no anesthesia, no antiseptic. If your tooth hurt, you simply bit down on a leather strap and screamed. Tooth extraction was a public event. People gathered to watch. Blood, pain, and spectacle. It was more theater than medicine. And hygiene? That barely existed. Most people never brushed their teeth. There were no toothbrushes for the common folk. Instead, they might rub their teeth with a cloth, rinse with wine or vinegar, or chew herbs like mint and sage to mask the smell of decay. But in the Islamic world, things were different. During the same period, scholars in the Middle East preserved and expanded on ancient medical texts. Al-Zarawi, a 10th century physician from Cordoba, wrote extensively about dental surgery. He even designed tools specifically for the mouth. Islamic tradition also emphasized cleanliness. The miswak, a natural toothbrush made from the Salvadora persica tree, was widely used and praised by the Prophet Muhammad. It cleaned the teeth, freshened the breath, and even had antibacterial properties. Meanwhile, in Asia, tooth care continued to evolve. In Japan, aristocrats dyed their teeth black in a practice called ohaguro. It was a sign of beauty and maturity. But surprisingly, the iron-based dye may have helped protect against cavities. In China, toothbrushes with bristles were in everyday use by the 1400s. But it would take centuries before that idea reached Europe. Back in medieval Europe, dental care remained primitive. If you had tooth pain, you prayed. Or visited a monk. Or the village barber. You hoped for relief. You feared infection. Because one bad tooth could kill you. By the time the Renaissance arrived, so did a new way of thinking. The Renaissance changed everything. It was a rebirth not just of art and science, but of medicine. Scholars began questioning old ideas, dissecting bodies, studying anatomy. And with that curiosity came a new look at teeth. One of the most important figures was Ambrose Pare, a French barber surgeon in the 1500s. He revolutionized surgery and began writing about tooth extractions, jaw injuries, and even artificial teeth. These weren't pretty. They were often carved from bone or ivory or taken from dead bodies. Yes, you heard that right, donor teeth from corpses or poor people were transplanted into the mouths of the rich. Did they work? Sometimes. But more often, they caused horrific infections. In Italy, the anatomist Bartolomeo Eustacchi studied dental roots and canals, laying the groundwork for modern root canal therapy. Yet despite these breakthroughs, tooth pain was still a fact of life. There were no fillings, no numbing gels, no antibiotics. If you had a cavity, it just kept growing until your tooth shattered or had to be pulled. Even in the royal courts, mouths were a mess. Take Queen Elizabeth I. She famously had black, rotting teeth in her later years. Sugar, once a rare luxury, had become a symbol of wealth. And she loved it. So did the rest of Europe's elite. But they didn't understand what it was doing to their teeth. In fact, sugar consumption exploded during the colonial era. And as it did, so did cavities. By the 1700s, the mouth had become a battlefield. But this was also when the first real dentists emerged. The 18th century marked a turning point. Dentistry was no longer just a side gig for barbers or blacksmiths, it was becoming a profession. In 1728, a Frenchman named Pierre Fauchard published a book that changed everything. Le Chirurgien Dentiste, the surgeon dentist. It was over 800 pages long. Inside, Fauchard described tooth anatomy, dental diseases, surgical techniques, and even early braces made of metal wire. He introduced the idea of filling cavities with lead or tin and removing decay before it spread. He spoke of oral hygiene as essential to health. Pierre Fauchard is often called the father of modern dentistry, and for good reason. He pulled the practice out of superstition and laid its scientific foundation. At the same time, dental tools were improving. There were now hand drills to clean out decay, slow, painful, but better than nothing. And dentists were beginning to separate themselves from general surgeons. They wore cleaner clothes, operated in cleaner rooms, and some even gave patients cloths soaked in alcohol or opium to dull the pain. In England and America, tooth drawers still roamed markets offering quick extractions for a few coins. But professional dental offices were appearing, especially in cities. The wealthy now had access to gold fillings, porcelain false teeth, and regular cleanings. Still, the average person suffered. Dental care remained expensive. Many people went their whole lives without seeing a dentist. Tooth loss was expected. By age 40, most adults were missing teeth. By 60, many had none at all. That's where dentures came in. And the most infamous? George Washington's. Contrary to myth, they weren't made of wood. His dentures were crafted from ivory, lead, and human teeth, sometimes purchased from enslaved people. They were uncomfortable, poorly fitting, and painful. But at the time, it was cutting-edge technology. As the 18th century gave way to the 19th, one thing became clear. People were starting to realize that dental health mattered. And the Industrial Revolution would take that realization and supercharge it. The 19th century was the age of machines, steam engines, and steel. Cities grew. Factories roared. And for the first time in history, dental care began to reach the masses. Let's start with one small but revolutionary object. The toothbrush. In 1824, an Englishman named William Addis began mass-producing toothbrushes with bone handles and boar hair bristles. They were cheap, simple, and suddenly available not just to the elite, but to anyone with a few coins. It was the first time oral hygiene became part of daily routine, not just for survival, but for civility. Soon after came the first commercial toothpastes. Early versions were gritty powders made from chalk, charcoal, or crushed brick. But by the mid-1800s, pastes in jars, often flavored with mint or clove oil, appeared on shelves. The idea of a fresh mouth was becoming not just a health goal, but a social expectation. Then came a major leap. The dental drill. In 1871, American dentist George F. Green patented the first mechanical dental drill powered by a foot pedal. It was faster than hand tools, but still noisy, shaky, and terrifying. Yet it allowed dentists to clean out cavities with far greater precision. Around the same time, anesthesia changed everything. First, it was laughing gas, nitrous oxide, then ether, then chloroform. These chemicals allowed patients to undergo tooth extractions and surgeries without screaming in agony. For the first time, people could face the dentist's chair without panic. Another game-changer arrived in 1895. X-rays. Thanks to Wilhelm Röntgen's discovery, dentists could now see inside your teeth. They could find decay hidden beneath the surface, diagnose infections before they turned deadly. The invisible became visible, and it saved lives. Meanwhile, dental schools were popping up across Europe and the US. In 1840, the first dental college, the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery, was founded. Professional licensing followed. Dentists now needed formal training. Standards were rising. But even as science advanced, problems remained. In working-class neighborhoods, sugar consumption exploded, candies, baked goods, cheap soft drinks. Dental decay became a national crisis, especially among children. Public health campaigns urged parents to buy brushes. Schools began teaching oral hygiene. Some factories even gave toothbrushes to workers. By the end of the 1800s, the message was spreading. If you want to stay healthy, start with your mouth. But the real transformation? That was just around the corner. Because the 20th century was about to change everything. The 20th century was the century of war, progress, and mass media. And in the world of dentistry, it was a revolution. Let's begin with one substance that changed dental health forever. Fluoride. In the early 1900s, American researchers noticed something strange. In certain towns, people had brown stains on their teeth, but far fewer cavities. The cause? Naturally high levels of fluoride in the water. By the 1940s, scientists realized fluoride helped strengthen enamel and prevent decay. And in 1945, Grand Rapids, Michigan, became the first city in the world to add fluoride to its public water supply. The result? Cavities in children dropped by more than 60%. Fluoridation quickly spread across the US, Canada, and parts of Europe. It was called one of the top public health achievements of the century. And it worked. Millions of people kept their teeth longer than ever before. At the same time, toothpaste evolved. In 1914, the first fluoride toothpastes hit the market. By the 1950s, companies like Colgate and Crest were in every household, promoting slogans like, "Look Ma, no cavities." Advertisements taught people to brush twice a day. Toothbrushing became routine, expected, almost patriotic. And then came the electric toothbrush. Invented in Switzerland in 1954, it was marketed for people with limited motor skills. But soon, it became a symbol of luxury and progress. By the 1980s, newer models pulsed, vibrated, even spun in circles, promising cleaner teeth with less effort. But dental care wasn't just about brushing. The dental office itself was transformed. Sterilization techniques became strict. Disposable gloves, masks, and tools became the norm after the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 1980s. Infection control became a priority. New materials appeared. White composite fillings replaced silver amalgam. Durable porcelain crowns looked natural and lasted longer. Titanium implants offered a permanent solution to tooth loss. Laser dentistry allowed for cutting and cleaning with almost no pain. And while all this happened, cosmetic dentistry exploded. Straight teeth became more than health, they became fashion. Orthodontics, once rare, became mainstream. Braces for teens. Veneers for movie stars. Teeth whitening strips at the pharmacy. Smile became status. By the late 20th century, dental care wasn't just about avoiding pain, it was about confidence. But even with all the progress, one truth remained. Millions of people still feared the dentist. The sound of the drill, the cost of treatment, the feeling of vulnerability. Dental anxiety was and still is a global phenomenon. That's why many innovations aim to make visits faster, quieter, and more comfortable. And that brings us to now. Welcome to the 21st century, where dentistry meets artificial intelligence, 3D printing, and DNA testing. Today, a visit to the dentist is no longer a terrifying ordeal, it's often painless, precise, and even predictive. Let's start with the basics. Modern toothbrushes are smarter than ever. Some electric models now track your brushing habits in real time using Bluetooth to connect to your phone. They tell you which teeth you're missing, whether you're brushing too hard, how long you're spending on each side. Brushing has gone digital. Toothpaste? It's no longer just for cavities. There are formulas for sensitive teeth, acid erosion, dry mouth, even remineralization of early decay. Some contain enzymes, probiotics, or even nanohydroxyapatite, a substance that mimics your natural tooth enamel. In the dental office, technology is transforming everything. Forget messy impressions. Today, dentists use intraoral scanners to take perfect 3D images of your mouth. Need a crown? A 3D printer can make one while you wait. Need braces? Your entire orthodontic plan might be designed by an AI algorithm adjusting tiny movements over time with clear aligners like Invisalign. Pain? That's becoming a thing of the past. Laser dentistry allows for drilling without the noise or vibration. Sedation options are gentler and safer. And with robotic-assisted surgery, implant placement can be done with sub-millimeter precision. But the real future lies in prevention. Imagine this. Your smartwatch tracks changes in your saliva. It detects bacterial imbalances. It warns you you're at risk of a cavity forming on your upper left molar. This isn't science fiction. Research is already exploring saliva-based diagnostics for not just oral health, but cancer, diabetes, even Alzheimer's. Your mouth may soon become the key to unlocking your whole body health. And the mouth-body connection? It's now undeniable. We know gum disease increases risk for heart attacks, strokes, preterm birth, rheumatoid arthritis, even Alzheimer's. Your mouth is no longer viewed as a separate system. It's the gateway to your bloodstream, your organs, your brain. Taking care of your teeth is now seen as an essential part of preventive medicine. But here's the paradox. With all our tools, knowledge, and technology, many people still don't brush twice a day. Many still avoid the dentist until it's too late. In low-income areas, access to dental care is limited. Even in wealthy countries, millions live with untreated cavities, infections, and pain. So the final frontier of dentistry isn't just technology. It's access. It's education. It's habit. Because no matter how advanced we get, it still comes down to this. Your brush. 2 minutes. Twice a day. Every day. 5,000 years of history. One simple truth. Ignore your mouth and you pay. Not just in teeth. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning. Your eyes are barely open, but your smart dental retainer has already analyzed your saliva. No needles. No pain. Just molecules quietly telling a story. Your phone buzzes. Early signs of gum inflammation detected. Increase water intake. Switch to probiotic rinse. Recheck in 2 days. You haven't even brushed your teeth yet, but your body is already being monitored. This is the future of dentistry, predictive, personal, invisible. Not reacting to pain, but preventing it before it starts. No fear. Just information. Artificial intelligence won't just assist dentists. It might replace your first visit entirely. You smile into your phone camera. An app scans the alignment of your teeth, the thickness of your enamel, the color of your gums. It compares your microbiome to millions of others in its database and gives you a full report. Small cavity forming on lower right molar. Risk score, 82%. Schedule nanosealant within 7 days. No chair. No drill. No appointment. Just data delivered before decay even happens. But it doesn't stop there. Right now, in labs across the world, scientists are working on something once thought impossible, regenerating teeth. In 2023, Japanese researchers launched human trials on a drug that activates genes left over from childhood, genes that once grew your baby teeth and then your adult teeth. Dormant for decades, these genes may soon grow your third set. Tooth loss in our lifetime could become reversible. Lose a tooth? Don't replace it. Grow it back. And while we're learning to rebuild teeth, we're also learning to rethink the war on bacteria. Instead of trying to kill everything in your mouth, the future may be about balance, feeding the good microbes and starving the bad. Toothpaste with targeted probiotics. Rinses designed to support the specific bacterial ecosystem in your mouth. Even oral microbiome transplants, yes, like fecal ones, but for your teeth. Because a healthy mouth isn't sterile. It's alive. Like a forest. Like a coral reef. Complex, beautiful, and delicate. But here's the most important shift of all. For thousands of years, the biggest dental divide wasn't between rich and poor techniques. It was between access and absence. Between those who could afford to protect their teeth and those who couldn't. The future may finally close that gap. Mobile dental clinics powered by solar panels reaching rural villages. AI-driven diagnosis in areas with no dentists at all. 3D printed toothbrushes distributed in schools. Clean water fluoridation in places that never had it. Because good oral health should not be a luxury. It should be a birthright. And after all these centuries, through ash, twigs, gold, drills, lasers, AI, and genetic engineering, we return to one unshakable truth. The mouth is the beginning of everything. Every word you say, every breath you take, every bite of nourishment, every cry of pain, every whisper of love passes through the small, fragile space. Ignore it and you pay. Not just in teeth. In life, but care for it and you protect far more than your smile. You protect your future, and the future, it seems, is getting closer every day. Soon, your toothbrush won't just clean your teeth, it will analyze your diet. Detecting high acidity from too much soda. Flagging sugar spikes. Notifying you that your enamel is under attack. It won't just tell you how to brush, it will tell you why. Children will grow up never knowing the fear of the dentist's drill. Instead of waiting for cavities, they'll get personalized mouthwash that neutralizes harmful bacteria before it causes damage. Their dental care will be tailored to their DNA, their environment, even their behavior. In school, students won't just learn about brushing. They'll learn how the mouth connects to the gut, the brain, the heart. Dental education will no longer be about avoiding bad breath, it will be about protecting cognitive health, heart function, immunity. And for the elderly, oral care will finally be seen for what it truly is, a lifeline. Dentures, implants, and painkillers will be replaced with real-time monitoring and regenerative solutions. Memory clinics will partner with dentists. Alzheimer's research will begin in the gums, because the evidence is no longer debatable. Inflammation in the mouth fuels inflammation in the brain. Neglected gums increase your risk of stroke. Oral bacteria have been found in the plaques of Alzheimer's patients. It's all connected, and we're finally listening. Insurance companies will have no choice but to catch up. Dental care will no longer be separate from medical care, it will be foundational. Governments will fund preventative oral health like they fund vaccines and prenatal care. Because it's cheaper to keep people healthy than to treat disease. And it starts in the mouth. Meanwhile, toothbrushes will evolve from tools to therapists. Some already coach you with vibrations and lights. The next generation may speak to you, remind you, encourage you, teach your child a bedtime story while cleaning their teeth. Turn brushing from a chore into a ritual, into a moment of connection. And perhaps somewhere in all of this progress, we'll rediscover something ancient. That brushing your teeth is not just a habit. It's an act of self-respect, a declaration that your health matters. A few quiet minutes twice a day where you say to yourself, I care about my future. Because in the end, after 5,000 years of trying, inventing, failing, learning, the future of dentistry is not just high-tech. It's deeply human. And it starts with you. A brush, a mirror, a choice, twice a day. Every day, for the rest of your life. Not just to keep your teeth, but to keep everything else.